everybody on here knows about Vitality Fitness, so I'm not going to introduce about Vitality Fitness. You guys are all familiar, and I'm just really excited that Erica has joined our team, and she's been a really valuable trainer and giving great workouts, but she's also really knowledgeable about different topics, so it's awesome to have her come on tonight and talk about posture. I'm going to mute you guys and I'll manage the slides. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or wait to the end or raise your hand and let us know, and we'll try to get to you.
So yeah, I'm super excited to be a part of this team here. I've been having a lot of fun teaching classes and getting to know you guys. So this is super exciting. And posture is something that has been really important to myself over.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. That was my fault. I muted Erica. Sorry. So sorry. Can you unmute yourself? There we go.
There we go. Now I can speak.
So sorry.
Hey, it's okay. I'm just going to scooch in that little bit closer as I hunch over the table. So as I was trying to say, posture has always been something that was really important. When I was very young, I used to take ballet, and I don't need to explain to you guys how important posture is when it comes to ballet. And I remember, sitting in the school library and somebody was reading a story to us and people were commenting about how tall and how strong my posture was. And, my mom was always drilling it into me, stand up tall, shoulders back. And it was actually got to a point where I'd gone to a chiropractor and he said, you're actually laid back. So we can be too conscious of doing some of these things as well. But yeah, I feel that it's such an important part for our overall balance. It's for our overall health and well-being. Do you want to go to the first? Perfect. So when we think about posture, it does so much for us. It can really reduce our pain. I've experienced this myself when I've been really out of whack, that I ended up, my shoulder was really hurting. I found that my hip was really hurting. And surprisingly, when we start thinking about our overall body function, our breathing, our posture can really affect our breathing. Our posture can actually really affect our digestion as well. If we're consistently slumped through, we can even trigger something like our psoas muscle to tighten up, to start to spasm. And it's really interesting that when our psoas muscle goes out of whack, that's the only muscle that joins our back to our leg, that it'll actually cause constipation. It can cause bloating. So, there's been times in my life where I was experiencing some of these symptoms, and then after having it linked for me, that made a lot of sense. Now, talking about preventing injuries, the more lined up we are, the more tall, the better that we're going to be overall. Has anybody here ever coughed or sneezed and thrown their back out? And I'm seeing a smile, I'm seeing a nod, like it's these silly little things, these silly little things that we turn to the side and we sneeze, and then something just snaps on us, and then holy doodle, we're taking medications and icing and heating and whatever else we can do to help alleviate that. And another point as well is it improves our joint stability. So this can be everything from our ankles to our knees to our hips, our shoulders. The taller and more strong and aligned our body is, the better everything is going to function, keeping those joints all strong. Now, one interesting part that I had learned is that for every inch forward that our head is, it actually adds an extra 10 pounds of weight onto our spine. So, you think about, I'm sorry, I'm leaning right, I got to lean right forward. But our ears should be in line with our shoulders, because each time we come that little bit forward, it's that much more that our head has to support. Thinking about your head is kind of like a bowling ball. So yeah, that's that extra strain that goes on to our neck, and well, our necks are very, very delicate. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure that I've got all of my points here. The other thing that we have to think about is not just standing up tall, but like you guys hear me talk about the triangles in your feet, it's having that even weight balance distribution. And not that you would want to have that, 247 around the clock, because you have to be able to shift your weight left and right. So, you can be standing and maybe put your foot up on the shelf, and a couple minutes later you put that one down and you put the other one up, or something of that nature. But for the most part, keeping that balance in our body, we tend to, especially if we've had an injury. I mean, I remember I broke my leg years ago, and because my left leg was out of whack, and I needed to put everything onto my right side, then my right had learned bad movement patterns because it had been overcompensating for so long. Does anybody else experience that with injuries that's thrown our bodies right out of whack? Again, I'm seeing nodding heads. It's amazing how these things happen. Okay, can we go on to the next one, please? Perfect. So this should be a video, and Aubrey will play this for you.
I'm going to talk to you about a seated posture. The best way to have yourself sit up straight is to just have your bum cheeks onto the chair, and then you would have your knees in line with your hips, and making sure that your ankles are below your knees and your toes should be in line with your knees as well. And what we do is we sit up nice and tall, feel like you have those suspenders between your ribs and your hips, lifting through the crown, and your shoulders are back and down. Relax down away from your ear. We have a tendency to sit forward and slump forward, and or we cross our legs, that sort of a thing. Whenever we bring our body out of alignment, we open ourselves up to an opportunity of injury. And it sounds silly, but just sitting the wrong way can over time cause bad injuries. So once again, bum cheeks are forward on the chair, knees are in line with the hips, ankles are below the knees, and shoulders are sitting above your hips, lifting through the crown so you're up nice and tall.
Perfect. So, I mean, this is what we would consider to be ideal in an active sitting position. But if you are, let's say you're doing an 8-hour shift at work, right? You are not going to be sitting like this for your full 8 hours. You might need to take that little bit of a break. So you slide yourself right back and you take the support from the chair, or you might put your feet up onto something that raises them and just takes that little bit of a pressure off. The other part that's important to think about is that just to have your keister parked for hours on end is definitely not going to be a good thing. So if you were, say, watching TV, you might say each time that the commercial happens, or the show comes over, then I'm going to get up and I'm going to do a little bit of a move around, or I'm going to take that time and I'm going to shift my position, whether it be shifting down, shifting up and forward, just check in, shifting those shoulders. So we're not being completely static all the time. We kind of activate and we get our bodies moving a little bit. But again, coming back to that proper alignment for our bodies, whether it be sitting forward or sitting back. So the slouching, as soon as we start to slouch, that's when our heads really come forward and it increases that hump into our back. And obviously, that's not something that we want. We want to be able to be up nice and tall and have that proper spinal alignment. The other thing too is if we think about crossing our ankles, and I've experienced this myself where I had injured my knee, like I said, years ago as a kid, or a teenager rather, and I find that if I sit with my feet crossed, when it comes time to stand up, my knee has something to say about it. It's not happy. It's had that little bit of a torque, that little bit of a pressure, because it starts to pull over in one direction. So just being conscious, to uncross those legs, or, to for so long have one on top and then change the other one on top, so it kind of evens itself out there. Now, it kind of touches here about the gait and making sure that your toes stay in line with your knees. And this is something that we tend to get out of whack with. And I know for years as a ballerina, I would turn my feet out and start walking like this. It looked really silly, but then I found out my mom was coaching me because she was, the posture Nazi. Stand up straight, get those toes back in line. And one of those things I'm actually grateful for. But, over time, if we have our toes outward turned, then it can start causing these problems. If you talk to a chiropodist or, what's the other word for a foot doctor, a podiatrist, they'll tell you that your back injury came from a problem in your foot. If you talk to a chiropractor, quite often they'll tell you that the problem in your foot came from your back. So, I believe that they are related. It can come up either way. It depends. You twist your ankle and you bugger up your foot, then of course that is going to trickle up your spine because you start to overcompensate going over to one side or the other, which is something that we had touched on before. If we're sitting up on a chair, does it benefit to have a pillow or something? Yes. It definitely does. Trying to sit up active as much as possible, but if you do need to, you can have something in behind your back. Oh, sugar, I should have actually brought some of them in. I have some really great, oh, she's got a bolster right there. Aubrey has a little bolster there. So it's just like a little lump. You can stick a pillow behind you. There are other, various other things that you can purchase that just puts that little bit of a support in behind your back. So when you do find yourself slouching back, I apologize, I'm tripping over my tongue now. But when you do find yourself slouching back, that you have that extra little bit of a lumbar support. And again, that's going to help you engage and sit up taller. All right, so that's that one there. And then can we go over to standing posture, please?
Erica, did you want to touch on driving while you're already in the seated posture?
Thank you. Good morning. Absolutely. So I actually have, some cars come where you can pump up your seat and give you that proper support that you need. If you have cruise control and it's safe to use, because as always, we don't want to use cruise control if we have any moisture on the road or anything like that. It is specifically for clear dry pavement. But if you can put that cruise control on, it allows you to be able to shift. So, and especially if you are driving an automatic, you consistently have that right leg is extended to press onto the gas. So you want to think about shifting your body slightly if you are doing those long drives. And again, you want to make sure that you have your chair is set to the optimal height. So again, thinking about how that feels for you with any kind of a back support there. Is my chair at the right height? Am I forward enough? Do I feel like my leg is extended too much? And so it depends on what kind of a vehicle that you drive and how many whistles and bells that there are as far as how well that seat will be customized to yourself. But those are the big things for me, is to make sure that I consistently shift my position when I do those long drives, which I have now become accustomed to. If I have to go to Corner Brook, which is where I go for a big grocery shop, or if I go for my vet, or, pretty much anything that I need, it's a 5-hour round trip drive. And before, I used to drive an hour and I'd be like, I'm spending the night. I'm not driving 2 hours in a day. Forget that business. And now I'm like 5 hours, pshaw, no problem. So yeah, just shifting around, making sure that you have a good support. There are things that you can purchase. And again, I didn't even think about this. I should have. Just those like blow up pillows that you can put behind your back, that kind of a thing, just to make sure that you have that good support. The one that I have in my car, it actually has a pump to it. So like a blood pressure cuff. So you squeeze it and you pump it up, but then you can also let it out slightly. So if you get it up too high, then you can let it out a little bit. You can pump it up a little bit more so you can consistently change the amount of support that you have. And it's also got straps so I can pull it up or I can pull it down, because my back is different than each and every one of yours. So, being able to pull it up that little bit higher if you're that little bit taller, pull it down that little bit lower if you're that bit shorter. And again, pumping it up to whatever level that you feel that you need. So that, I hope that helps you with your driving question. There's very little that we can do. And stopping, if you're doing those long drives, is to make sure that you stop every couple of hours at the very least, to get out, do a little walk around, use the bathroom, that kind of a thing. Because, otherwise, actually one of my girlfriends, she went from Ontario down to Florida and she ended up with blood clots in her legs because she ended up just sat there and doing the marathon drive and didn't think to get up and move enough. Now, here's a woman who is in her 50s who has MS. I had actually helped her lose over 200 pounds back when I used to work at the Y. She was an aquafit person because she had a lot of problems with her knees related to weight that came on after she was diagnosed with MS and got into to a real down in the dumps from that, understandably so. So that was something also to be really concerned about, is making sure that we move that much, because those blood clots, holy cow, it's really dangerous stuff. She's lucky that she's been able to stave it off. Anyway, that's my personal thing, not for this. Other than the whole importance of getting up and moving.
I'll just add a really quick note that a lot of our members are in the DC area and traffic is outrageous and it can be stressful. And so just kind of even just remembering to take a deep breath and remove those shoulders from your ears and just bring them down, and just kind of, when you have your hands on the steering wheel and those, the stress is coming on of being stuck in traffic, or, it's always the situation in the DC area, start to creep up here. So just kind of being mindful of bringing them down like we always do, when we talk about it for our general posture.
Absolutely. And, it sounds to me like driving on the 401 from back in the day. That's the reason I won't drive the Beltway. Sounds like the 401, it's really horrendous. I mean, here, rush hour, we've got like 3 cars in a lineup. I don't remember what heavy traffic is.
We can all to that one.
I'll talk to you about it.
I thought I was moving you. There we go.
Standing posture.
You want me to play the video?
Yes, please.
So when we think about our posture, we want to think about having our ears are in line with our shoulders are stacked over top of our hips, thinking in terms of having like a pair of suspenders between the bottom of your ribs and the top of your hips. And we lift up out of the hip joints. We have a tendency to sink down into things, but really lifting up. So this is our good posture, standing tall, lifting through the crown, versus slumping down and allowing our tummies to bow. Relaxing down, bad posture, shoulders are rolled forward. Good posture, we stand up, roll the shoulder blades up, back, and down, and we lift through our crown.
And the other thing that I forgot to mention, and I didn't even get into when I was talking about this setup, was the setup from the feet up, right? So this is you guys that take my classes, you hear me talk about the triangles in your feet, the ball of the big toe, ball of the little toe, ball of the heel. Once you have that balanced weight through those triangles, you can literally feel your hips move. You can feel the way that your hips set. And when you get, if you put too much weight on the outside and not enough on the inside, or if you're leaning too much forward, you can feel the strain on your knees. So that's really important whenever we're doing any of those standing postures. And again, thinking about if you had to stand at, say, as a cashier in a store and you were standing there for hours and hours on end, you're going to want to shift around. But having that ball of the big toe, ball of the little toe, ball of the heel, neat little tip as well is to spread your toes and to grip them in. And what that does is it gives you that more of a balance in it, and activates more of like our reflexology points in our feet. But again, just the way that starts to set your hips and allows you to engage your core that little bit more, and then helps you to be up nice and tall. Now, I started giving this, I'd forgotten about this tip until recently, or this cue, and it's headlights. And forgive me for it, shoulders relaxed back and down, but frozen image looks like your shoulders are back. Yeah, it's the way that the my sweater kind of bunches there. The shoulders are back and they are down, and I apologize that it looks a little bit wonky. Shoulders back and down. Oh, and sorry, it's the headlights. So somebody I used to work with years ago, and she said that this was one of the people that she had worked with, had given her the cue of headlights. So I'll just stand up for a second here. So when we bring our ribs down to our hips, think about our headlights are forward. And then as we start to do an overhead lift or something, we have this tendency to arch our backs, and then the headlights are up. So thinking about headlights forward helps us to keep that balance, keep that stack of our ribs over top of our hips. So if you were standing, let's say you're doing a big prep, you've had, excuse me, it's harvest time. I don't know if you guys are canners. I am a canner. I'm a preserver. I go and pick berries and do all of this stuff. And if I'm doing a big turn in the kitchen, doing a lot of prep and stuff, I will put my foot up on, like I'll open up the door to the cupboard, and I'll put my one foot up, and then I'll put the other foot up after so long. So again, just making sure that we are shifting. We might go a little bit to the right, but go a little bit to the left, and then making sure that we come back to center. Now, if you are just thinking about when we are walking, if any of you are big walkers, you can get these things, they're called walking poles. And when you engage and you use those walking poles, it helps you to keep your ribs down. It was something that was prescribed to me by my physiotherapist. But just by using those, it engages the back of the arms, which is something that generally you don't activate when you are walking. But it also, like I say, it helps to keep those ribs down. So we're talking about this as a standing posture, but it is something that should be maintained as we are walking and moving in our day-to-day as well. And part of that too is tucking that tailbone under. And when we do this, and this gets into those suspenders again, but when we do this, I can actually feel it kind of release. I have my SI joint on the right-hand side, my low back on the right. It tends to lock up. But when you get that little bit of a tilt, that little bit of a tuck under, I can feel a really gentle stretch through there. So for those of you that are having some challenges with your low back, that may be something that helps as well. Sit, stand. So, and if you can as well, like if you have a big day that you're doing all kinds of things, trying to be able to go between a seated and a standing position. So let's say that you're working in an office during the day. So, you know, generally you're seated, but you might like, okay, well, I'm going to have to make a phone call or something. Then when you make that phone call, hopefully you can get up and you can move around, and you won't necessarily have to be making notes the whole time, or even have a notepad up tall on top of, I'm throwing things, on top of like a filing cabinet or something of that nature. So you can stand up tall and you can write those notes while you have that conversation. So it's a matter of just getting up and moving. Myself, when I was working in an office, what I would do is I would set a timer for every 45 minutes, every half hour, and I would just get up and I would move for 1 minute. So sometimes I would get up and do like sit to stands, do those squats. Another time I would just march on the spot. Another time I would do those butt kicks with a row, just to get my body moving. And I found that it really helped me bring my brain back into the work, because sometimes you just sit there and you're work, and you kind of start to not see things. Sorry, what am I trying to say here? It's sometimes you just skip over fine details or what have you. So by removing myself from it, moving for that minute or so, coming back into it, it's like you have a fresh outlook. Your body feels released, you feel that little bit clearer, and then you can get back in and get your teeth sunk into it again. Good idea. Thank you. I'm glad you appreciate that. And the same thing goes, right? Like if you're sitting there and you're watching TV, or okay, so if you're binge watching on Netflix, you don't have commercials to worry about. But okay, that episode's over, so I'm going to get up and I'm going to do 1 minute of rows with butt kicks and then have a seat, and then watch another episode, and just to try and get up and keep yourself moving, or use that as a cue to to adjust your posture, to kind of check in. Okay. Anybody else have any other questions, comments? Okay, so next up.
When we think about...
Sorry, did it again. There we go.
So next up is chin tucks. And we'll go through and we'll watch the video. And then Aubrey shared a really great cue for me today that I hadn't heard. I've had this explained to me by a few different people, and I've shared it with pretty much everybody. But anyway, we'll watch the video and then we'll go on.
So when we do a chin tuck, we want to think about our shoulders up, back, and down, and we just draw our chin back into our throat. We lift through the crown. Our face stays pointing forward, and we just slide our chin back into our throat, creating the double chin here, but giving you a lengthening through the back of the neck.
Perfect. So, and I'm glad you like that one, Diane. So the one that Aubrey had shared was thinking about having like a pencil in your ear, and then your pencil is in line with your shoulder. And because I always talk about just doing that lift through the back of the crown, number one, you want to make yourself as tall as possible. So you've got your triangles and you're lifting up out of those hips and you're standing up nice and tall. But with that pencil in your ear, you just kind of do a little bit of a tilt. And then right there, you should feel that gentle stretch in the back of the neck. And depending on what you have going on with your body, you can feel this right down between your shoulder blades. But this was a car accident I had years ago. This was like number one that the physio was talking about. And again, they got into me about my posture, because being 20 something at the time, you get sloppy in these things. We don't think about these things. But this was like number one key, was to do these chin tucks, do these lifts, get that lengthening. And again, feeling like we have that, and turning through the neck, but having that lift, like feel like you got a string that's pulling up through the crown of your head. And once we have that chin tuck position, when we go through and we do our head turns or we do our ups and downs, that we maintain that posture, right? We're up nice and tall and dropping our ear to our shoulder. You can feel the difference, right? If you just willy-nilly drop your ear to your shoulder, you're going to feel a stretch. But when you get that nice lift, your ears are in line, and you get that drop, the difference is huge. Now, when we do that ear to shoulder, the number one thing that people tend to do is we tend to look down into our underarms with this. You really want to think, my head is straight forward, and it just goes on to a lean to get that stretch in through the side of the neck. Now, the other part about this too, and I touch on breath all the time, but to try and put your breath into where you're feeling these stretches. So as you go through and you do that chin tuck and you feel that gentle stretch, try to put your breath into the back of your neck and to the base of your skull. And we should go through, and I have this note here about guided breath and tall posture. So I'm going to touch on breath a little bit, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get us all to stand up, or we can do it in a seated position, just to focus on breath. And I talk about this, I touch on it from time to time in classes, is that breath is so vital and important to us. And when we're actively breathing properly, we engage our chest, we engage our back, we engage our bellies, we get the whole thing moving. So what's really key here, when we just take quick, shallow breaths, and I mean, I was a heavy smoker for many, many years. I'm over a decade tobacco free now. But when you are a smoker, thank you. When you are a smoker, you don't think to breathe. So we get to being really shallow breathers because we only really breathe when we're taking that drag of a cigarette. So when we take those quick, shallow breaths, we really start to weaken the respiratory muscles, and it creates an upper body tension, which will throw off our posture. Or if we have poor posture, for example, like we have our shoulders are all hunched forward, and we shorten and we tighten up through the chest here, then this will affect our breath. So breath affects posture, posture affects breath. Just like, is the injury coming from the foot or is it coming from the back? So when we take a deep breath in, we contract our diaphragm, and then we have these muscles in between our ribs. They're called the intercostal muscles. And what they do is they assist the diaphragm by lifting through the ribs and allowing room for those lungs to expand with our breath. And so important to, so I had a girlfriend, she's an amazing person. She walks barefoot everywhere. She's made her life on barefoot living. Anyway, one of the things that she was saying, because she does like Wim Hof breath, which is a whole other can of worms that I'm not opening up today. But she does this really big rib breathing, and she had a nasty fall on the ice, and she didn't break a rib. Here's a woman in her 60s, and many people in their 60s, they don't have that elasticity to their ribs because, like many of us, having been smokers or what have you, everything kind of stays really stagnant. It doesn't have that elasticity. But she believes because of all the breath work that she did, she had that elasticity, and when she fell, she bruised them. Yes, it hurt like a son of a gun, but nothing broke. So this is one of those amazing things. So just, well, I guess we'll do it in a seated position. This into and onto, it's something that I've picked up living here, and it's a Canadian accent thing that I have to break myself of because it's not even from my area. So anyway, we'll just think about having our shoulders are stacked over top of our hips, our knees are in line with our hips, and our feet are underneath our knees. Draw our shoulder blades up, back, and down. Let's do that little bit of a lift through the crown, drawing our ears back in line with our shoulders. Place your hands on your belly. We're going to do focusing on breathing into the belly and getting the belly to expand. And we're just going to breathe in through the nose. We're going to hold it for a couple of counts, and then we're going to exhale. Excuse me. So let's take a nice deep breath in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go again. Deep breath in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One more. In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the hold and that pause and then the extra little bit of an exhale is really important. We don't tend to wring out all of our breath from our lungs. So this breath training can be really important. I'm not going to dive into that can of worms. I'm going to stay on track here. But you should have been feeling your belly expanding with that, and you should have been able to feel your ribs expand as well. The ribs should be going, thinking about them going out. We tend to breathe really heavily into your chest, which is one thing I did see with you, Mary Ellen, is that we tend to breathe really high up into our ribs. So when you're going to bed at night, you know, placing your hands on your ribs, placing your hand on your belly, playing around with that a little bit will be really great. So yeah, once again, that bad posture, the rounded shoulders, the forward head, that is going to tighten up our chest. It's going to restrict the movement of our ribs. The bad posture affects the breath. And again, if we're not breathing enough and activating enough of our body, it affects our posture. All right. Up next, please. So, shoulder squeezes. We'll play this video.
The second exercise for us to do is your shoulder squeezes. And you simply squeeze the shoulder blades back behind the body and release. Drawing the shoulder blades back and together, keeping the shoulders rest down and release. Draw them back and together, thinking about the lower parts and release.
So with this here, it's all about opening up through the chest and strengthening through the back. And what you want to think is, again, we're trying to come down into the lower part of our shoulder blades and joining those together. If we come up too high, then we start to really engage our traps, these muscles here that bring our neck onto our shoulders. And if we activate those too much, I mean, oh my goodness, the tension, headaches. Would you mind running it again? Not a problem.
So the second exercise for us to do is your shoulder squeezes. And you simply squeeze the shoulder blades back behind the body and release. Drawing the shoulder blades back and together, keeping the shoulders rest down and release. Draw them back and together, thinking about the lower parts and release.
So the chin tuck and these shoulder squeezes, these are things that you can do multiple times throughout your day. This can be one of those, set that timer for 30 minutes, an hour, or something like that. Or, you know, one person that I've been working with, I gave her this cue, and now she and her husband, they kind of like poke each other. Hey, draw those shoulder blades together. So they kind of play around with it. So this is something you can do this in traffic. You can do this, you know, at the doctor's office, you know, those chin tucks, those, you know, if you're waiting for an appointment. Mind you, I don't know about you guys now, but you can't just sit in an office here anymore. But you know what I mean. Just those anywhere, anytime you can do it. It's inconspicuous. It just activates those muscles, gets things moving, and works on improving your posture. Just again, because it's drawing those shoulder blades back and down, and it's opening up through the chest. And again, focusing on the lower part so we don't activate too much of this upper neck and shoulder area. Give yourselves tension headaches, because that is definitely no fun. So these, like I say, do them, you know, repeatedly throughout your day. And there's a couple of other, the other thing too is these here, it will help to reduce your chances of your shoulders seizing up on you when you're consistently working on mobilizing them. If you have shoulder issues, then obviously there are more important things that we need to delve deeper into to properly mobilize and activate and work through those. But the difference that these will make, just these little things that we can do throughout our day, are huge. Now, a lot of us, once we're done our exercises, you know, when we've done our workouts and we're doing our cool downs, there's a lot of different stretches that we can do that will also help to, like, say, release through the chest. So one of them, I'll just stand up here. Oh, good. The sun has gone down that little bit more. So clasping the hands behind the back. Now I always do it where I put my thumbs into the low back and I squeeze my elbows back behind the body, again keeping those headlights forward, and then stretching out away from the body and turning the eyes of the elbows out. That really helps to open up through that chest. There's another one where you bring your arms up to 90 and you just gently lean through a doorway, or you can do it into the corner of a room. Here, I'll do it into this doorway here. So you can do that lean forward, leaning forward, and again, helping to open up through the chest. So those are just a couple of the ones that, again, opening up through the chest and activating through the back when we move through those. So repeatedly throughout your day, just these little things to check in on to work on improving ourselves here. And again, it can be a cue of break time, it can be checking an email or what have you. So this next one here, this is an exercise that we could do, but this would be something that you would do like once a day. Now, this is not something that you are going to use weights for. You know, your whole concept of I'm going to grab my 5-pound weights and have at her, forget that business, just don't even worry about it. Go through your simple range of motion using your body, and then eventually you might use, say, a 1-pound weight or something. But even like big muscle-bound bodybuilders and stuff, they're not even going to be pulling out 5-pound weights for these. So I'll let Aubrey play this video.
This is another really great exercise that we can do to help fix our posture. Placing a rolled up towel underneath our forehead, laying on our tummies, bringing our arms up to 90 degrees and just gently lifting up and behind the body and releasing down. Bring it up and hold and releasing down. This is opening up through the chest, strengthening through the back, and in turn helps you stand up straighter and taller.
Now, I'm doing this laying on the floor here. I had thought about it. I don't think that this would be effective doing it on a bed. The reason being is that the bed would be very soft and we would have a tendency to kind of sink into it. Laying on a firm surface like this, if you have great trouble getting down onto the floor, you may consider being able to do this on a coffee table even. Depending on what kind of furniture that you have in your home, there might be something along those lines. So we keep our core engaged, so we're still thinking about those suspenders, even though we're laying on our tummies, because we don't want to be arching our back. So even that whole headlight straight ahead, that even holds true for this one here, even though we are face down. That for the towel underneath our forehead, it just lifts up, gives us that bit of breathing room, and we still have that gentle bit of a chin tuck here. Now, this is just one of the variations here with the arms up at 90. And you can do it with your arms out to your side, so just a slight angle away from the body, and you would have your palms down, and again, squeezing back behind the body. Squeezing back behind the body. You can come up into a T with your arms out, palms down, or thumbs up. And then there's the Y arm. So we do the X's and Y's as we're going through and we're doing our workouts. So again, laying on our tummy, holding that position, and we just lift up behind the body and bring it down in line. Up and squeeze and align. Even as I'm doing this sitting in the chair, I can feel how challenging it is to keep the ribs down, to keep that core tight, to be able to get that isolation through the back of the body, and really feeling that squeeze between the shoulder blades and how much that activates. So there's the Y with your palms down, Y with thumbs up. The 90 with the palms down, 90 with thumbs up. So those two variations, it's just even like anything, the way you change how you're holding your weights or the way that you have your hands positioned will activate different muscles in your back. But again, very key is to keep that strong, solid body. And this here is strengthening through the back, opening up through the chest.
Erica, one of the ones that I love that's similar to this position, but it's actually flipped, is lying on your back with that rolled up towel along your spine. You know,
Yes.
like a beach towel or something like that, a real thick towel along your spine, lying on your back. You can even bend your knees and put your feet flat on the floor, but then getting your hands into this position or the T position, like you were mentioning, and getting that good stretch is a really nice one as well.
Absolutely. I love that one. I use it with a 3-foot foam roller.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Really well.
Yeah, that's the towel is a great makeshift.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually one of those things. Again, it's and you can just lay there on the floor watching TV, you know, and you just get that chance to relax. But by laying there with your arms out, and I even play, I'll pull into a W, I'll extend out, I'll do angel arms. You know, you just play around with it. But again, keeping that tummy strong and trying not to arch the back, because as we start to move, just like when we start to do those overhead lifts and things, we instantly, those headlights come up and they're shining up over the trees. We want them down on the road. Perfect. So now,
Chris
go
has
ahead.
a question.
Yeah, I have a question, and that is, describe the position of the towel again. It's rolled up. Is it behind your neck or is it vertical along your spine?
Bear with me one quick second. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to go and grab my foam roller and I can show you. Just give me 1 second.
Chris, do you mean for the one that she's demonstrating here or the one we're talking about on your back?
That's the one I mean. The one on your back when you're on the floor.
Just along your spine, like the towel you're running from you're rolling it up in a long ways, you know, a long ways versus a smaller ways, and you're running it from the top of your spine to the bottom of your tush, right, you know, right along your spine if possible. Yep, just like Erica has.
Okay, so it's vertical.
Yeah. So you're kind of using it to like open up your chest either in this W or this T position, kind of opening yourself up over top of that. You want to put, if it's a foam roller, you want to put your tush on there and your head on there so that you're supported.
Okay, thank you.
So you could use a rolled up yoga mat, or is that too much?
Yeah,
Nope.
you could.
Sorry.
I'll let you go, Erica. Yeah.
We're both gung ho. Yes, yes, yoga mat. We're all so eager to help here. So I guess the next thing for me to touch on, if there aren't any other questions about these exercises, is I will talk about sleep. So now it seems, the consensus seems to be that most of you are side sleepers. So you really, if you're on your side, you want a pillow that is going to fill between your shoulder and where your head is. So the size of that pillow is, I can't prescribe that for you. That's something that you would have to play around with. You know, if you've got super flat pillows, you might stick 2 of them together in one pillowcase to get enough density that's there. And the other part too is that you're going to put something between your legs. So you're on your side, you've got your pillow underneath your neck, underneath your head, supporting between your shoulder and the bed. You have something between your knees, and you also want to be hugging onto something. So that way we don't just totally close in and forward. So enough support between your head and the pillow so your shoulder isn't crushed. Something to hug and hold on to so your shoulder doesn't totally collapse forward. And then by putting something between your knees, that helps to keep that space, and it helps to keep your hips in line. I apologize. I'm tripping over my tongue tonight. So, and these are just easy things that you can do. I mean, I've always got several pillows. I've got one for under my head, and I'm a back sleeper. I'm having trouble. My watch is talking to me. So you lay on your back. You've got something underneath your head, but I put 2 pillows underneath my knees. So that takes the stress off my back, because if you're just laying totally flat, that throws our back arch out of alignment. But if we can put that support underneath our knees, that takes some of the stress off the back. And again, by putting that pillow between your knees when you're on your side, it keeps your hips stacked. Otherwise, we tend to kind of crunch off onto an angle, or something's going to fall forward.
I'll give a little side pillow advice as a side sleeper myself, although I do get into every position every single night. So I flip my pillows a lot and my husband hates me. But I have 2 thin-ish pillows or medium-sized pillows. The one is my regular pillow that I lie on my side, and I stuff it as close as I can to my shoulder so that it's supporting my neck. And then I take the other one that's a little thinner and I stick that on top, but it's kind of angled. So it's a regular pillow, but I angle it so that it's also supporting my head, filling that little extra space that would make me go like this if I didn't have that. And then I use it angled to be my huggy pillow. So I have 2 regular pillows, medium support. One is regular pillow alignment of the bed, and I stuff it close to my shoulder. And the other one, I take it and I kind of angle it like that so that I continue to stuff the space. And then I use that as the huggy part of the pillow instead of having 4 pillows and really suffocating my husband. Because the other one I have between my knees, and then halfway through the night I throw one and put that one under my belly and sleep on my belly because I can't stand it when I wake up. That's the only thing that makes me go back to sleep.
Oh, so flipping onto your belly helps you go back to sleep?
Yeah. I have back pain, so I need to have that pillow under my belly and a flat pillow under my head at that point. So that's when I lose the huggy pillow. That one goes probably onto the dog cage, and I take the one that was between my knees and I put it under my belly so that my back is supported so that I don't wake up with back pain.
Oh, that's great. And I know when I go for massage treatments, I always put something underneath my tummy, underneath my pelvis, just to give that little bit of a lift up. And that does make a huge difference. Because otherwise my back just aches when I get up from that position.
Yeah.
Very good. So sleep, we went over. Low back issues, we kind of touched on. There are some other really great stretches that we can get into that. Does anybody else have any other questions or concerns? Anything else you'd like to go over?
I do. When we're exercising and you're telling us to breathe with our movements, I tend to be in the opposite. I'm breathing in the opposite way than you're saying. Like you're saying, use your power to breathe in when you lift up or when you, and I'm always doing it in the opposite way, and I'm having a hard time repairing that.
I
absolutely
have the same thing.
Yeah, I am always breathing in the opposite direction than you're telling me to breathe for the exercise that you're giving.
So, and this is a challenge. It took me a while to retrain myself for this as well. But you want to think wherever you're going to be doing your exertion, wherever the hard part is, that's where you want to exhale. That's where you're going to want to force your breath out. So if you think about, okay, I'm doing a squat, so I'm going to inhale, I'm going to get myself into that position, and then I'm going to exhale, press up, squeeze my bum forward, right? So that inhale, I'm coming down, exhale, I'm forcing my breath out, and I'm getting that, it gives you that extra power. The only thing that I can say is that it's going to take practice. Happy that that's helpful. Yeah, it is something that does take practice. It took me a long time to learn that. You just like the shoulders back and down. It is something that you need to try to focus on. Just
Okay.
something that you have to kind of remind yourself for. And that's why I consistently cue it, So like when we're doing deadlifts, for example, inhale, hinge forward. Exhale, squeeze the shoulder blades back. Inhale, release down. Exhale, up tall, push the bum forward and squeeze. So I will try to continue to consistently cue that for you. But again, just thinking about wherever I'm doing this hard work, that's where I'm going to force my breath out. Same thing, like let's say you're out doing yard work and you got a big bag of leaves that you got to haul out and it's going to be heavy. You take a deep breath in, you grip that bag, and then you exhale and you push through those heels and you use your legs for that power. Excuse me. And you also use your breath for your power.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the other thing is, today I was having a very hard time with the planks on the chair. I seem to do better on the wall, but either my arms are tired or my back is hurting if I'm doing it on the chair. And I don't know if I'm doing it incorrectly or if that's just the way it is.
Well, it is going to be more challenging to come down onto the chair as opposed to the wall because you are supporting more of your body weight. One thing that may be helpful, I know myself when I was working on doing push-ups, I found that the kitchen counter height was the perfect height for me to work on that. So maybe there is a level between the wall and the chair that would work better for you. So you have something that's kind of an in-between step. Okay. Keeping those hands underneath your shoulder and, obviously, though your tummy stays tight, I always cue button your belly to your spine. Always keeping that core tight because the more engaged that your core is, the more it protects your back. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah, it does take a lot of shoulder strength, Diane, and I know you've got some neck issues and some back issues, and so I think just, you're doing great on the wall, just working your way a little lower, like Erica said, with like maybe the back of the couch height or a countertop height or something like that, where you're really thinking about pulling those shoulder blades down and back, really thinking about that pinch or that squeeze, as well as the core is going to get you there.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I have a question about crossing your legs. And I've read various things that say that's one of the worst things you can do. And of course, women do it all the time. So why is that so bad? And it's really hard to break that habit. And so then I thought, well, okay, maybe, cross your ankles. But earlier on, you said that's not so good either. So basically, is the best thing to do just train yourself to always have your feet flat on the floor?
Yes. Crossing your ankles, I believe, is going to be the lesser of the evils compared to crossing your legs. But you think about it, just the same thing with men that have a big fat wallet that they stick in their, yes, it does give you spider veins, but men that stick a big fat wallet in their back pocket and then they sit, like one hip is up, right? It's not that even. And the same thing happens. Once we cross our legs, our hips come out of alignment. So just for example, like sometimes we'll be doing a stretch and I'll always say, don't get cheeky, keep equal weight through your bum cheeks, right? Don't get cheeky. So same sort of a thing there. I know I catch myself crossing my legs and I'm still to this day trying to break myself of that habit. Mm-hmm. But it is something that you need to consistently remind yourself of, in the interim, trying to cross your ankles instead of your legs overall. But anything that we do that takes our body out of that alignment is going to put pressure on different joints. And that's where you end up cutting off circulation that gives you those veins and things, right? Do you have any other suggestions for that, Aubrey?
Yeah, that's just a hard one. I find myself constantly trying to correct myself, even the notion of standing into one hip, standing kind of leaning into one hip. I am notorious for that. I do that all the time, and I have to constantly remind myself, wait a minute, shift over, because I've got some right hip pain and different things like that. And if those kind of things, when you do have pain, at least as a reminder for you, it's a good time to listen to your body, and kind of take that as the reminder and kind of make those shifts. But yeah, just kind of every now and then, if you can just kind of check in with your posture, and just kind of remind yourself, like even during this presentation, I think maybe 20 times I uncrossed my feet. Like it's just one of those things where like it's habit for us. And so if you can just get in the habit of checking in with your posture, knowing that it's not going to be perfect at all times, and it shouldn't be always in this absolute perfect posture. That's not great for us either. We need to have some mobility and some movement amongst, our joints and everything, but just kind of checking in with your body a few times throughout the day. I like that Erica was saying, like, when you're doing an email or when you're doing a phone call, take that moment just to kind of readjust and check in with your posture and like see where you are. Are you sitting into one hip? Are you crossing your legs? Have you turned into a task all the way over here? Just kind of reminding yourself throughout the day.
Very key. And yeah, it'll be one of those things till the day that we leave this earth. We'll be catching ourselves on those.
Yeah. So I want to thank everybody. If nobody else has any questions, I want to thank everybody so much for coming and having Erica tonight speak. Was amazing to hear her tips. I think it was a great presentation. I'm really thankful for her and thankful for you all for joining us. I'm going to send out an email to everybody who joined this evening, and give us, Erica has shared her taco and chili spice blend. Being that it's Cinco de Mayo, we thought we'd throw in just a little something. And so just a little recipe that I'll share with you guys via email afterwards here from this presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys so much for coming. It's been great to see you all outside of making you sweat and kicking your keister around the corner.
Yes. Good to see everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Hope you guys have a great night.
Yeah.